At 6 o'clock, the news now on BBC One with Clive Myrie.
Remembering the Forgotten Army. Commemorations on the 80th anniversary of Japan's surrender in the Second World War. King Charles says the courage of those who fought in the Pacific and Far East is a flame that would blaze for eternity.
When you go home, tell them of us, and for your tomorrows, we give our today.
Our other top story tonight: could today mark a major turning point in Russia's war with Ukraine? Hello to you. The King and Queen have led commemorations on the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, which brought the Second World War to a close. Victory over Japan on August the 15th, 1945, ended almost 6 years of fighting, and there have been commemorations today right around the world. In a message from Buckingham Palace, King Charles said the Allied troops who fought in Asia and the Pacific would never be forgotten. Well, Helena Wilkinson is at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, where today's main commemorations were taking place. And Helena, it's been a day of remembrance, and thanks too for the sacrifice of so many.
Yes, it's been an incredibly moving and poignant day, Clive. The King and Queen, as you mentioned there, joined around 1,500 guests. Of course, the guests of honour here today were the veterans who fought in the final brutal months of the Second World War in the Far East. That service of remembrance took place earlier on today, not far from where we are. There was a flypast, there were poems read by 2 veterans, and many memories shared today, Clive, by veterans who we were told today had never spoken publicly about what they went through during their time in the Far East during those last months of the Second World War. 33 veterans were here today between the ages of 96 and 105 years old. As you would imagine, some of them are becoming increasingly frail. We also saw the King have a look around the area where we are. Just behind us here is part of the Burma rail track, and he was shown also some of the memorials to the veterans of the Second World War, those who fought and were caught up in those brutal last months as well. And after the King visited this area, he and the Queen and also the Prime Minister went to a reception with veterans, their families and also their carers, where they chatted to the veterans there. There were also 3 prisoners of war. And we spoke to many veterans here today. What is very clear is that it is incredibly important today has been for them to mark what they say is a significant anniversary, the 80th anniversary, of course, since Japan surrendered. And many of them had said to us today that this will be the last opportunity, probably, that they will all be able to get together in the way that they did here today. So a lot of memories being shared on what has been a significant, moving day here for the 80th anniversary.
Indeed, quite a day. Helena, thank you. Helena Wilkinson at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire. Well, when Japan surrendered, they were holding tens of thousands of Allied soldiers and civilians as prisoners of war. Another 30,000 had died through mistreatment, illness and starvation. Olga Henderson, who's now 93, has written about her wartime experiences. She was living in Singapore, a British colony at the time which the Japanese had occupied. She and her family were all captured and held in internment camps for 4 years. Jane Hill has been to meet her on HMS Belfast, moored on the River Thames.
The Japanese forces have surrendered unconditionally and the war is over. All Allied prisoners of war, we will get supplies to you as soon as possible, and we will make arrangements to get you out.
Olga was 13 when the Allies dropped leaflets telling prisoners that World War II had ended.
We stood there and looked, and we said, that's a plane, that's a plane. And this thing, and then they dropped all these leaflets, you see. So, of course, everybody was running to get one. So of course I ran and took it to Mum, but don't think anybody really believed it.
Thank you so much. That's really kind of you to talk to us for so long.
I met Olga on board HMS Belfast, which played a role in finding and repatriating thousands of Allied men, women and children who'd been held in appalling conditions.
It was just dirt. 118 of us with one toilet. So you knew you were full of worms, you had sores and everything, you had hardly no clothes. Well, the food was just kept going down and down. The food wasn't there.
So everyone was starving?
Starving, yes. You had nothing. I mean, I used to just have to go like that with my hair and all the knits used to fall off. Used to have so many of them in, you couldn't do anything. When I came back, of course, I was nearly 14.
Yes.
And
She told me about the days after the Allied victory.
they started dropping food. And they used to drop bread for us, but they forgot to send a knife. So the bread had to be broken off, a lump, and you were given a lump of bread.
And so we're talking today because it's the 80th anniversary. What will you be thinking about and who will you be thinking about?
Well, I will be thinking about all the ones that were with me in camp.
Those who brought the Allied families home wanted to give the children some sense of normality.
Tell us a little bit more about the role of HMS Belfast in the end of the war and the war in the Far East.
In late September 45, a children's party is hosted for internees like Olga on the decks of this ship. So the sailors put their rope skills to use, they rigged up swings and cranes. This was a little piece of British territory. It was a point of familiarity, of home and of comfort, and it was the start of the rehabilitation of these thousands of internees and the terrible things they'd experienced during the war.
Today, 8 decades after Olga's family suffered in the camps, how does she reflect on the war?
What was it all for? You know, I was watching the news on the television and I said I saw this little boy and there was a lot of boxes or something and he was holding his hand out. And I thought, I just cried. I thought, that's what we were doing, just to have something to eat.
Olga Henderson there with her reflections on the war, speaking to Jane. And we're going to have more on the 80th anniversary commemorations a little later in the programme. Now, we're going to turn now to our top story, the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, which brought the Second World War to a close with victory over Japan. Helena Wilkinson is at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, where today's main commemorations were taking place. Helena.
Well, Clive, it's been an incredibly moving and poignant day. Some of the 33 veterans who were determined to be here today to mark the 80th anniversary since Japan announced it was going to surrender. They were determined to be here for this anniversary, and we spoke to some of the veterans who attended the service. The red arrows roared through the blue skies over Staffordshire, a tribute to those who served in the Far East during the Second World War. Today, it was their day. 33 veterans came together in the blazing sunshine to mark a landmark anniversary, aged between 96 and 105 years old. Among them was 101-year-old Ron Gumbley, a veteran who served in the Far East.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Thank you.
King and Queen joined veterans for a poignant service of remembrance. And at midday, a national 2-minute silence was held to remember all those who served. It was 80 years ago today when millions of soldiers and civilians heard the news that Japan had surrendered.
So let us join in thanking Almighty God that war has ended throughout the world.
It brought an end to months of brutal fighting in the Far East and an end to World War II. Earlier, in a personal message, King Charles honoured those who served and sacrificed.
We recall too the prisoners of war who endured years of brutal captivity, the starvation, disease, and cruelty that tested the very limits of human endurance. Innocent civilian populations of occupied territories faced grievous hardships too.
At today's service, there were also prisoners of war. Catherine Canning was just 11 months old when she was imprisoned for 2.5 years with her family.
We were rescued by 7 paratroopers who risked their lives to rescue us. One of them was Japanese.
This was the first time many of the veterans at today's service have told their story. The event heard moving accounts and memories from those caught up in the war. During the service, the King and Queen laid a wreath in memory of those who sacrificed. And there was a personal message from one of the veterans to King Charles.
But before I read the excerpt, I make no apology for briefly going off the script to salute my brave king, who is here with his beloved queen, in spite of the fact that he's under treatment for cancer.
After the service, the King and Queen, together with the Prime Minister, joined veterans at a reception, including Ron, who read a poem at the service. And what was it like being with your fellow veterans?
It's sad, really. Sad. No. You know, I mean, they seem to be all popping up a little bit now. That's somebody last week, I think, and somebody the week before. But I suppose we can all expect that now.
Many of these veterans have felt like the forgotten army. Today, their sacrifice and courage were honoured, their memories shared, so their stories will never be forgotten. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News, Staffordshire.
A beautiful day there in Staffordshire. Now, let's find out what the weather forecasts are for the weekend with Elizabeth. Hi there.